The SEC West could be an utter bloodbath over the next several years. I put up a list earlier today on Twitter. I think we actually have it here graphically. So I want to show you something, and if you're listening on podcast, I'll read the names to you. I just want you to tell me, when you hear or see this list, what do you think? What comes to mind? We got Nick Saban, Brian Kelly, Jimbo Fisher, Mike Leach, Lane Kiffin, Brian Harsin, Sam Pittman. What comes to mind there? As you come to your answer, think about the last name on that list. This is in no order, by the way. Think about the last name on that list. It's Sam Pittman. Sam Pittman, I would have voted for as Coach of the Year in the SEC. I think Kirby ended up getting it, which I was surprised by. I don't think it's anything like the Heisman, neglecting the likes of Will Anderson, but I was surprised by it. Anyway, Sam Pittman, I think we can all agree, had a good year this year. Sam Pittman currently makes $3.75 million per year. And I say currently because that could be about to change. Sam Pittman, like everyone else out there these days, has gone and hired the services of Jimmy Sexton as his new client, or as his new agent. Pittman is now a client of Jimmy Sexton. Per the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette today, they are floating a new contract with the University of Arkansas that would land in the neighborhood of 7 years, $50 million. So I had Stats and Info crunch the numbers, and that is around $7 million, a little bit north of $7 million per year. Jesse didn't even want to put the decimal in there, so it's just about $7 million and change per year. I also did my own numbers, and that's almost double what he's making right now. And that brings me back to the SEC West bubble, because boy, it's big. The SEC West bubble is really big right now, and I just want to know, as you look at this list of salaries, and you assume that Sam Pittman's about to get a massive pay raise, how long will that bubble stay intact? I would argue it can't stay intact very long, because here's the good news. I'll give you the good news first. It's going to sound a whole lot like the bad news. The good news is every program in the SEC West is all in. I think it's the only division in any conference in America that you could accurately say every program is at an A or an A-plus level in terms of being fully invested in football. That's the good news. The bad news is also that every program is all in on football. It's not normal, and that means you got a bubble, and that thing's going to go pop eventually. Because normally what you have is you have a hierarchy, and you have a couple of programs that are all in, and then you got a couple more programs that take it pretty darn serious, and any given year they could pop you for a loss. And then you've got the also-rans that you use to get fat on. We don't really have any of that in the SEC West. Everyone's all in. Why is that bad news? Well, when you're all in, you expect those returns on investments. And simple mathematics tell you, if we got all these teams all in, there aren't enough wins to go around, and that creates a great big bubble. And so we got Saban at Alabama, we got Jimbo there at Texas A&M, we've got Brian Kelly now at LSU. You would think if you judged on the resources available at those programs and then you judged those coaches' track records, you would think those are great white type programs, type situations. Normally, you got room for one, maybe two great whites, maybe in a division. You certainly don't have room for three, but even if we were going to have three over here, you got to have some minnows. You got to have some food out there. Arkansas's not food. Did you play Arkansas this year? Did you watch what it was like to play Arkansas this year? Ole Miss just went 10-2. Ole Miss is in a New Year's Six game. Mike Leach, in any other conference, people would be scared to death to play him every Saturday. And then you got one unknown. To me, the only real unknown in the entire SEC West is Brian Harsin at Auburn. And by the way, just speaking of Harsin, I don't know anything specifically. I want to preface before I say this. I don't know anything specifically other than I have an itch on my nose. That's the first thing I know. The second thing I know is you've heard some rumors, some random whispers about Brian Harsin out there, right? And you also saw Lincoln Riley just flat out say, nah, I'm good. I'm going to go as far away from the SEC West as I can get. And it was reported that when Riley left Oklahoma for USC, the eventual move to the SEC was part of his decision-making for getting out of there. My point is, whether you hear some strange rumors every now and then, or you see some eye-popping headlines that involve coaches leaving that division, you look at that list we just threw up a second ago, or I read to you a second ago, it makes it make a little more sense, doesn't it? So when someone tells you one of the big lies, you know, we go through them all the time. I think I'm going to do a segment coming up on one of the big lies, which is you are what your record says you are. Just point them to the SEC West. I want you to look at Auburn's schedule if you're watching on YouTube right now. And I want you to think, in any given year, Auburn University has to play LSU. They have to play Texas A&M. They have to play Alabama. They got to play Arkansas. They got to play Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Oh, and by the way, they get the added bonus of playing Georgia every single year. If you want to look me in my eye with a straight face and tell me 10-2 against that schedule just doesn't measure up to a 12-0 or an 11-1 in a G5 conference, I'm going to not ask, are you on substances? I'm going to ask, which substance are you on? And then there's a third option, and that's you just being willfully ignorant or maybe wanting to buy into SEC bias, whatever that garbage is. Look at that schedule. Like whomst amongst us would look at that and first off expect anyone to be able to go undefeated. But even if you get through 11-1 or 10-2, I'm telling you right now, I can take some playoff teams out there and I can put them through that. And if they go 9-3, I'd be pretty impressed. So one of the big three lies in college football is you are what your record says you are. Another one of the big three lies is, well, a win is a win. And I'm going to go over the third lie in detail down the road. But that's a bloodbath. And as we look ahead towards Wednesday, when we have early signing day coming up, we have Texas A&M pushing hard for the top class in the country. Certainly you're going to have Alabama in there. Certainly we're watching for what LSU is able to do. They're trying to scramble and kept Frank Wilson on board, which is huge for them. Brought him back, not kept him on board, brought him back. And they've had some guys like Corey Raymond leave, but they've also got Frank Wilson on board, and they're just trying as best they can to, snatch as many as they can. But let's see what they do. But just in a general year, I mean, you got Lane Kiffin there at Ole Miss, and he's not one of the first three that you really even mention because you got Brian Kelly on the block now, and you got Jimbo doing what he's doing and Alabama doing what they're doing. I think it's just fascinating that Texas A&M is looking around and saying, well, we don't really care. Like, we rightfully, if they feel this way, rightfully, we should be the other Alabama. We should be that other program that the rest of the country looks at and says, boy, I'm glad I'm not in the SEC West, so I don't have to play those guys. They're building towards that. I mean, they got a haul coming in, a haul. And that's not even to mention what they could do any given year in the transfer portal. So, boy, oh boy. I mean, who knows? They may do something at quarterback in the transfer portal for all we know. Whispers, rumors, innuendos out there. But the Wednesday early signing day, I think will raise a lot of eyebrows for people who aren't fully tuned into recruiting all the time and they just come around when the signing days are happening. I don't think a lot of people know what A&M's been up to, but they're about to find out what they're up to. And Alabama's not going anywhere. Bama's right there too. Like they're neck and neck. It's the usual suspects, and Georgia's up there too. But boy, A&M, they said, we see the party. We understand who's hosting the party in Tuscaloosa, but we're going to come in anyway, if that's all right. The SEC West, stay exactly where you are, Billy Napier. Stay exactly where you are, Kirby Smart. You don't need to go anywhere. Stay over there as long as you can. You got to cherish it. Like Billy Madison, you got to cherish it.